Health and wellness are more than a destination. They are a process and a journey of personal choice. Come hear from people out in the field, doing the work, bringing health and wellness to many. So welcome everyone today to our channel. I'm so delighted to have Nic Scogna here, who is, well, we are very like-minded. I was on his channel and we really got connected, and it's wonderful to meet you, Nic, and have you here. Nic is the president of Life Energy Publication. I would be really grateful if we just tell the audience a little, like if you tell the audience a little bit about yourself,
Sure.
where, your background. You have quite an interesting background.
Yeah, and it's really hard for me to say like this is my background because it's
Yeah.
not just like I went to school and I did these
Yeah.
things.
I
I
understand.
I journeyed a lot, and in journeying a lot, I was looking for myself, and I found that in my family was created a system that did just that, help people find themselves. So I fell upon that, and with keeping it in that line, I journeyed a lot. I found something that was already there, in a way. My background is that I had a lot of desire to know myself, and I looked in many different locations for it. I looked through astrology, I looked through numerology, name analysis. I tried a lot of different systems, and I developed into those systems. I became those systems in a lot of ways to find out more about myself and why I ticked and all of that. And lots and lots of traveling led me to a kind of a wide view of consciousness and myself in it. And then I came upon my father's work, who had passed away years prior. My mother was working to revitalize it. This is the Life Energy Publications. And this work involves a method, a simple method to find out about yourself and the where you are presently and where you were in the past. And what I like to say is it helps clear out the future, helps to open up the possibilities of your future. If you have a set in stone way of being, this kind of isn't a great way to live. So when we investigate ourselves, we find out why we're blocked, why we don't have all these options in our future. And we clear those blocks. It opens up different avenues for us. And in the process, we learn about ourselves. We learn to know thyself. And that is the method. It's the method of self-awareness. And it's done through certain formulas, the SAF method. And that is basically the breadth of the Life Energy Publications, as well as a teaching format for learning about why things work, the science of life energy. Why in physics, where in physics, I should say, can we find this life energy and these operations in quantum physics? Why is it hard to map these things? Why do they change? And there's a reason for all that, and that's part of what we go into with Life Energy Publications. And so
So,
that's kind of,
yeah,
where I
that's,
am and
yeah,
who I am and all that stuff. Yeah.
wonderful. Well, this just touches the surface because obviously your dad was a very special man, and he had an incredible mission, to help humanity and to help them know thyself. And that's what has been going on for eons. And we've had many distractions, many that
Yeah.
we are not some things that we think we are, right? So I think what you're getting at here is that when you start to self-reflect, right? You start to self-reflect, you start to unravel, the essence of who you really are. And that is very important for all of us right now to do, because we've all been kind of programmed on some level physically in the earthly realm, right? That's just program from family, program from your environment, program from your experiences. But not just that, we have genetic programming. So I think what you're getting at here is, as the people are awakening right now to who they are, and this has been going on for some time, your father was one of the leaders in this. And I believe you mentioned that he really loved the work of Edward Casey. You mentioned to me about that. I think that's wonderful. I see that Edgar Casey's still on the bestsellers list. That's amazing for
Yeah.
holistic medicine. Well, maybe you want to just talk a little bit about your dad and give us an idea of who he was. And
Yeah. Well, he grew up in South Philadelphia, and he got involved with the Philadelphia Inquirer. He found himself to be a natural salesperson. He was very, very good at basketball, and he went on scholarship to University of Delaware via basketball. So he saw that as all geometry. He was a dynamic arrow of a person, so he had a will and a determination to get to his goals. He fell under ill health in his college years, and he was taking physics, chemistry, physiology, and sciences of athletes and things like that, as well as these other sciences like physics. And he was thinking that he was going to be a doctor. Well, he went to the doctor with his issues, and he found that the doctor was just going to blindly prescribe him things and really didn't know what was going on, had no idea. And that shocked him, because here is the learned person, the person that has all the knowledge.
yeah,
And later he would talk about how specialization was not the way. You wanted to generalize. Somebody that does only know a little pocket of one thing doesn't really know much at all. You
yeah,
wanted to generalize and open up your perspective to take in as much as possible as far as information goes and knowledge. Well, that shocked him out of wanting to be a doctor too.
I can imagine.
So he's
Yeah.
like, wow, he didn't help me at all. And so in that, he started to do his own investigations, and the way that and methods that he wanted to approach wellness was through nutrition and through a holistic approach to what was termed, not even holistic at the time, approach to wellness. He did have some backgrounds with Scientology. From my understanding, he took what he could from that on the more mental and formatting ways, and he brought that together with homeopathy, the what was homeopathy at the time and still is. And then he blended that together and created a system, as well as what he used to use in college, a simple math formula for sorting, and created the SAF formulas, which is a method of sorting, but it's also a method of working with somebody's condition. So you'd work it in a clinic. And then he was in a clinic with a bunch of other practitioners at the time. And then 3 Mile Island happened.
Oh,
And that opened him up to a real need to understand radiation. And he did a whole lot of radiation studies. And through the radiation studies, he created this whole system, the SAF numbering system, and started writing very, very quickly to somewhere around 150 different books and manuscripts, all on this subject that involved the new way for homeopathy and herbs, and connecting all these different systems of study and concepts into, or plugging it into the SAF method. Now, because it uses math, it plugs into almost anybody else's system, or any system.
so can I just kind of summarize? So it seems like what he did
Yeah,
was took like integrative, I call it integrative medical back systems,
yeah.
like Ayurvedic or holistic, holism, or
Holism. Mhm.
you look at the whole what you mentioned just now, herbalism. Then you have you know, working with frequencies like homeopathy, all kinds. So
Mhm.
all of those have their purpose to treat root causes in our history, thousands and thousands of years
Right.
before our modern medical system was born. True?
Yeah. Yeah. And he
So,
and he looked at the homeopathic doctors of the 1700s and 1800s
okay.
as pure genius,
Yeah,
because they stumbled upon something that uh like heals like, which just doesn't make, what?
I like it.
But it goes into energy,
So it's all
that.
about frequency. It's the
Hmm.
base, the base of everything is that we are energetic beings having a temporary human experience, but we do have a
Right.
physical body that has certain needs. So one of the things we're starting to understand, it's like you've got all those aspects of yourself, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and they all need to be in good frequency to be healed. It's not like you can just do one thing. Sometimes you need to look at the
Right.
whole. So it
Yeah.
seems like what your father did was to look at that and make a system that was easy to treat the root cause for each unique person. Because that's the other thing. Medicine looks at everybody kind of the same, and we're not the same. Nobody's the same, right? So
Right.
this is really, even our DNA is not exactly the same. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And to go into that, he looked at the person as the best diagnostic. Who do you ask? You ask the person, what's going on? How are you feeling? And that would give you a really good read. So this questionnaire is the person filling out their own information, as honest and truthful as they can come up with based on, what they know. And the method actually sorts the known from the unknown, and it puts it in line, or it sequences it, because energy is sequential. So it sequences energy, and then it further sequences it in a way that the monitor, the secondary, which I think mainly comes from Scientology, is from my understanding of Scientology, which I don't have much, but this idea of having this other person monitor the chain, we utilize it so that the person that's monitoring is able to interpret the chain because they have the knowledge of the format, whereas the person that's taking the questionnaire might not even know. They might just be a client of some sort. But the monitor is there to just interpret. They have no idea. They don't know the answers that were given in this questionnaire. They don't know anything about this. They don't need to know anything about the client. They're just there to interpret the chain as they know it. And then in that process, begin to probe back into the person's uh, history of themselves, emotional, mental, spiritual, physical.
Where the
Um,
blocks are, in other words. Like,
right.
can you give an example? Like, let's say, I'll just say, let's say a lady shows up, and obviously it's more complicated. She shows up with emotional trauma, that she is always reactive to, and it turns out something happened in her childhood. Would that come out in this survey? Would you be able to figure that out?
Well, in a sense. And again, it works on the known and unknown, but it also works on the magnification. So what's important at the moment. It will if it's related to why they actually came in. So maybe they actually came in because I don't know how general I want to go, but because they had a headache or something like that. I have a headache and I have these headaches that won't go away, a recurring thing. Let's go with that. Well, what does that have? Okay, let's find out. So we do this questionnaire, and again, the monitor has no idea beyond the headache. But if they're trained in life energy, if they're trained in the SAF method, they know that they're not coming in because of the headache. There's more to this. There's a root to it. And that is what the investigation leads back with the chain of numbers that pinpoints specific organs and glands in the body that hold these charges. And so what we look for is these points in time where the charge has been kind of bundled up, and we look to release the charge because that
Yep.
charge belongs in the present. It doesn't belong in the past.
Yeah. So so then you, in that sense, rebalance or neutralize the charge.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
the person doesn't have the complaints anymore.
Basically, that's the concept. And of course I use these. I'm going to use more, bland terms like concept and idea because it's each individual and what happens for them happens for them. I'm not here to broadcast out that it's going to do this or anything like that. I don't know. It's how you use it is, as honest as you can be with it, it will be honest with you. And then the work is in doing that release of the charge.
But
And
that's
usually
so
for people,
interesting.
it's 5 minutes, cut
Really? And
through
then
it.
they're
And
better. And
yeah,
then
I
they're
mean,
better.
like that should be it.
Wow.
But it could be that that charge now has created a chain reaction, which we call the chain of numbers, to other charges. Now, sometimes you can't get back to the depths, to the deep, dark secrets of the past. You can only get to the, more recent things. And it really just depends on, of course, the person and how much work they've already done, how good
That's
their memory
very
is.
interesting. Yeah, that's very
Yeah.
interesting. I know with my work with kinesiology, it was very much like that. it's, researching, I knew nothing about it, but asking the body in the way that they're trained,
Yeah.
they were able to go back sometimes 14 generations to clear up stuff that I was carrying. And that was just very interesting. And I even felt like different, like immediately. So you're totally correct. And sometimes it was emotionally based, sometimes it was mental, sometimes it was physical. It was always on these different planes. So, and they connect, right? So, but
Mhm.
I found that a fascinating. I believe that's the future of how we
Yeah.
will help people. And so we need to get back to that. We have to go a little bit back now. Not that we're not going to take what you like. I love what your father did because he kind of took the past, what they knew, and then he made it for the modern world very effective. True. That was
Yes, in a lot
excellent.
of ways, he blended together Eastern philosophy and Western knowledge of medical science and put that
Wonderful.
all together. That you can read about in the books. He goes into a lot of it while also talking about the basics of why this stuff works, which is I think is very important. And you said equilibrium. That is what we're all striving to
Yeah.
reach, and it's a constant push and pull of the pressure and the space. That's basically all that we're in. We're always saying, well, it's a dual world. Yes, it is a dual. That's how everything functions. You don't know love without hate. You don't know,
Yeah.
you know, pain without pleasure. It's just a matter of just the way life exists. It is in a dualism. That's the organization of it is pressure and space. Where there's space, pressure pushes towards, and it creates another vacuum behind it. It's a constant push and pull, and we're trying to find that balance point in between the two worlds and equilibrium. That's what it's all about. So in the body, we want to hit homeostasis. We want to hit a point that we're in a balance point, a still point. We call it control and rest. And
Yeah. And so if you're not resting enough, you're going to feel that like it's going to come.
yeah,
It's going to be
yeah,
out of balance. We all see that, right? That's a
yeah, it's
big
all about
problem thing.
balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, what is your father's? How many books did he write?
Well, that we have published manuscripts and books. We have 14,
Yeah.
but somewhere in a neighborhood of 100, 150, something like that.
Wow.
Most of it's just he would do some have called automatic writing, where he would just write,
Yeah.
and he,
What is his name and what's your
uh,
favorite book?
Joseph R. Scogna Jr. I actually love the Project ISIS book because it gets involved in the electrical world and the electrical currents, and learning about that kind of thing is pretty dynamic and interesting. And it's just the way the world works in the and the body in the way of utilizing the terminology of electricity so that we can greater understand like the different flows of energy and things like that. But
That's
Project
cool.
ISIS was used. Now, a lot of what I do love is because my father's passed and a long time now, hearing his voice,
Hmm.
um, being able to kind of relive him through these different seminars that we have. That stuff that I'm putting out on our YouTube channel is um, really enjoyable for me. A lot of it is, he wasn't necessarily a uh, calm person. He was very assertive and had his way. I always, preface that he, worked in a newspaper sales room. So you hear a lot of what he says and how he talks. It's very, Philadelphia of the 80s.
Yeah.
He's, got a lot of
Funny.
different energy for the time. So I enjoy that a lot. But you hope, why did you come up? You say, what is here's our new book, Project ISIS, and it's a very positive statement.
That's
You know,
funny.
it's just that kind of concept of being able to relive the past through these is I love that. But Project ISIS, I love that book because it goes into the real physical aspects of this whole phenomenon that we're experiencing.
Which is really important as a nurse, I can say. We have to understand our body is so important. So we have to understand how it's relating and connecting to our energetic field. We
Yeah,
are we are all actually connected on all levels, right? So
yeah.
learning about that is fascinating. So you're the okay, so you're the president of the Life Energy Publications, but you're also the founder of Modern Holistic Alchemy. Can you tell us about that?
The Institute for Modern Holistic Alchemy is the place where you learn about SAF and life energy. As of right now, it's purely that. We may put in some other courses that involve other studies, but right now we're going to be doing some bite-sized courses. We haven't developed them yet. Time constraints are mainly what is involved there, but we have the level 1 course available, which is where you can learn about from a clinical perspective. So it's a full course that teaches you how to work with your clients and also learn the system so that you know what you're talking about when somebody
Right.
comes up to you. The Institute mainly, the idea is in modern alchemy is that we're looking to do what probably the alchemists of old wanted to do, which was to transform the iron into gold, so
Yeah.
transform this base consciousness and soul and person into a magnificent thing. And the way to do that is through that person. That person does the work, and it's that hero's journey. We like to think about it as a super person of ourself that we want to attain and become. And if we get close, great, because we've got all these extra talents on top of it. So we look to alchemize what was into what will be. And in that process, we utilize the SAF method to do that because it is through the investigation of the self and becoming more whole in our past and having knowledge of those things that we realize that we have these latent talents that were there either from the DNA, from our history, most likely, or things that we maybe started to develop when we were younger and we stopped. And we think back and we say, oh, I wonder why I stopped. Well, SAF will go back if you'd like it to, and will give you that answer. Why did you stop? Here's why. And release that energy so that maybe you can become a writer. Maybe you can become a singer or something like that. Anything's possible in the future. And, but we find we have these roadblocks. So we work with the Institute, we work specifically is as these courses to help us to uncover ourselves so that we can become more truly who we want to be or meant to be.
And I think some of that is looking to this shift from the 3D, 3 density to 5 density. So imagine that we could at one time on Earth be in this higher density where we had more possibilities, right? Our physical being. So we're looking to now this new time has come where we have this new idea that this is possible, that we are going to have more abilities than we ever had. But we do need to deblock some of those things we talked about. So I think it's really cool. So people who are physicians or therapists or coaches could come and take your training to
Anybody.
enhance. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Anybody.
Okay, and
Yeah.
we'll
Anybody
have
wants to know more about themselves is basically what it comes right
wonderful.
down to. But it is right now, it's specifically designed clinically. But yeah,
Perfect. So let me ask you a little bit about metaphysics because we know quantum physics is here. We know meta means beyond what we see physically, right? What we really look at physically. So obviously the old way we looked at physical was very physical. Physics
hmm
was like how we move in earth, how we move in this earthly realm. But now what we're really looking at with alchemy is the possibility to change that. But we have to look at metaphysics and quantum physics to understand that, I think. Can you
mm
talk about
mm.
that?
Yeah. So yeah, and then the idea that physicalists or people that are very want to see everything, they have a place, but we all should kind of have that critical thinking when we're working with things, but we need to allow for these variations because it gives us inspiration into understanding the unseen and the things that are operating that we may not quite know or understand yet. But there is a place for proven, track records of the physical sciences, so to speak. Um, the metaphysics takes us into a realm that is non-predictable, but can be made predictable in a sense. But it depends on how many people are viewing it. So it gets really confusing if you have more people looking at the same subject. If you're looking at, let's say, we could say that astrology is very metaphysical. But if you tried to test it, you're going to have a weird ratio. And there's many reasons for that, but one of them is that it's something that's felt more than is seen, and this involves other senses. So there's a lot of our sense tracks, our sensory channels that are not online, let's say, they're not working. And there's a lot that are working that are not understood. They're just there. And we really ride on five. We really go with our,
Five
touch
senses.
and yeah,
Yeah.
we really go with
Yeah.
the sight and the, whatever. But that's how we've learned to survive. We cut other ones off because they're not necessary for survival as deemed by our our brain, is it? Or our basic survival mechanisms in our consciousness and say, yeah, we don't need all that stuff. But they're there to be developed. So you could look at a lot of the metaphysics and quantum physics as all part and parcel to everything that already is. It's all there, but you have to uncover it. How do you get to those things? How do you shine the light on those principles of ourself that we can start to access? Let's just say psychic energy, for an example. Well, we understand it as an energy or a force. We don't understand it. And some people have it naturally. Some people fake it because that's something, yeah, well, nobody knows about it. Maybe you can fake it. And then others want to learn about it. So how do you do that? If it is a sense, then it's something that we can start to develop. And one of the ways that we do that is to attune our intent and our will and our desire. If you want something, you have to begin to the process of looking for a way to achieve it. And in
Yes.
doing that, it seems that in quantum physics, you can look at that, but it seems that the whole universe begins to the process of helping you to accomplish that goal if you so choose. And you have to kind of line everything up right so that everything starts to conspire to help you achieve it.
Yeah.
But you have to want that.
Well,
So desire and
you have to believe that it's possible. Because if you think it's not possible, then you close that door. That's my experience.
right.
The
Well,
people,
belief and knowledge of it that it even exists is one of the biggest things.
yeah, like
Does it
you
even exist?
exactly.
Yeah.
So when we talk about like how strong our beliefs are, our ideas, we have an idea, we go with it. A belief means we really hold it as possible, true for us. Well, the minute you would say those senses are just not there. I know people who don't even believe, they just don't believe in psychic abilities.
Right.
Maybe they're afraid of them, but the minute they cut them off and they say no, well, then the universe will just shut that door, I believe. So
Yeah.
that's not going to be their path for now. Maybe later, maybe at another time. That's
For
going to
now.
bring us to another question in a minute.
Yeah.
But so many people on earth right now are light workers and they are much more developed in these other senses. I have met, I mean, I have those abilities. Other people I know have developed them somewhere else, maybe. Maybe we don't just develop them here, like there are some ideas about that I have, but I wonder how you feel about that. Like people are definitely not the same. So we come into this earth with our own other, creative lives or
Hmm.
experiences, maybe even other places.
Yeah.
We don't know, right? We don't know
Right.
everything right now.
Consciousness is very, very pervasive. It's everywhere. And that doesn't mean just on the earth. And this becomes tricky because we're very centric to ourselves and that extends out to our planet too. So it gets tricky because what if there's consciousness elsewhere? Uh, is there? And is there a way to tap into that? Um, are we able to pull strings from consciousness outside of the earth and utilize maybe tools and potentials from those strings that we're pulling from those other places where consciousness does exist, because it does exist other places. We just get really stuck on the earth, right? We just think that this is it. This is it, right?
Yeah,
The chosen people, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Well, what if there's other places? And we say what if, so then we put a little bit of question into that. Now we have a question. So that means there must be an answer. So, well, we would do our investigations. We would look to do some seeking. Now, what tool would we use? We'd probably use a tool of consciousness, which would be the astral body or something like that, something that can ride the realms of the consciousness. in a vehicle that's suitable for it. And then we will find something else in our consciousness that we didn't know existed, another power, let's say. In just developing the astral body, you'll find that you have this whole other means of expression for your own life here on Earth to utilize. So a lot of light workers have come about light work by dark work. They're usually getting into light work because they were in a realm of darkness and they had a mystery that they needed to uncover and fix. And in so doing, they stumbled upon a system that worked for them. And that was their bridge to get out of their own self and into this greater world of consciousness of themselves, because they really didn't go anywhere, right? But they are now living more in a light perspective with a balance of that darkness, that thing, whatever that was that drew them into this realm of healing and help. And that seems to be one way for people to find these new powers and tools, is to find yourself in one situation and pulling yourself out. And then you have two worlds to balance together. And you've created this, you create a system. You've created a method, a map. And so, yes, we can uncover a lot in ourselves and by investigating these metaphysical elements in the world. The psychic phenomenon is definitely one that's very attainable, because we have fairly good track record and proof that it does exist. So we now know, like, okay, there's people that are doing it. How are they doing it? And how can I develop it? You can either find those people and get direct training, which would be very advisable. That's my advice, is always to find somebody doing it that's already been there and do the chain of command type of way to go. And of course, find the right person. When the key opens the door, you walk through it and see where it takes you. Not everybody's going to be the right for everybody, but you just
No.
never know. You got to try them out. And through that method, whatever their method is for having discovered this latent power, there's a good chance that they have a map, a method for you to also track and create this power as well. Power,
Yeah.
I think, is one way we can look at metaphysics.
But it's more like an innate power, not a power over something. I want to mention that. It's your own natural authority to
Right.
create your reality. I think, for instance, for me, like what you said, know thyself. First, you need to know what connections you already have. So
Hmm.
some people aren't even aware that they already have gifts and they already have, like, for instance, I definitely think I've worked with a lot of kids with ADHD and even autism, and they have gifts, like they really do, like far beyond what we understood. So
Yeah.
I believe that we first have to connect with our own gifts. Like, for sure, I know now, because I've been working with this, that for me it's a certain way that I get information from the universe or the grid versus just something I've been programmed. So I need to know the difference. So those are kind of things you're talking about, where you get an awareness of your consciousness, of your how you view the world, and what is from you and what is not from you. Because some
Right.
things are not even from us that we
Yes.
believe. They're just taken on in our even in our DNA. So,
Hmm.
but this is all very fascinating. So I want to ask you another question about multidimensional, because we've talked about we are multidimensional. We're not just physical, and we're certainly not just spiritual. We're both, right? On
Right.
Earth, we have a body. So tell me a little bit. You were talking about the electric system. Tell me
Hmm.
about the power of understanding the electromagnetic field that we can use and utilize, not only for healing and health, but just for living, for
Hmm.
creating our own reality.
Well, that gets into a system that was developed in the 1800s that basically maps out um, the seen and the unseen. So it's very important to understand it, because we are stuck in this land of, five senses, but there's so much more there. There are things vibrating higher and vibrating lower, and there are parts of ourselves that are all strung out into those different realms that are accessible. one of the things with the life energy research in 1983 that my dad developed was a method for reading a person's infrared output at certain points on the face and hands and feet, whatever, that is very closely aligned to the acupressure points. So what we call venting sites, where these points, the organs and glands, or these parts of your matrix, or whatever you would want to call it, vent out. And by taking a temperature and then reading that temperature against the other temperatures on the face, let's say a face scan, one can create a new chain, an SAF, and find out what is going on that's hidden, the hidden causes that person might not know is going on or is there, whether that be physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual. You can create a chain, then you can create a map in time backwards to see what is going on in the present situation. I like to tell people to charge up if they've got a specific issue, to charge it, to feel it, to experience it when they're getting the infrared read. That way it's present of mind. But you can also just do general, where you're just calm and let's just see where I'm at. Infrared is below the spectrum that we can see. So this is very important for us to understand that there are things that work on a very physical level. It's a very understandable system. When you cross-coordinate them with other known systems that may be ancient, and maybe there's some tests and things like that that you need to verify, but that was already done. We've already did that with back in the early 80s to map this to the acupressure, acupuncture points. They're not exact because our research said that they weren't exactly the same. And that's just the way that works. But when you overlay them, when you overlay these two methods of understanding the electromagnetic spectrum, understanding infrared light and energy, and a maybe you could say metaphysical system of acupressure, acupuncture, to modern technology, then you have this great method to approach the ultimate, person in their ultimate place, and what's holding them back, what's stopping them, what's keeping them from vibrating higher out of that spectrum.
So it can be fears, for instance. It can be a lot of things.
Anything. Yeah,
It can be
anything.
anything. Can also be physical toxicity, I suppose.
Physical
It can,
toxicity.
yeah,
Yeah.
lots of
I stubbed my toe when I was, and I have a memory of that. When you have the sidewalk, the edge is just a little
oh
higher.
yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember hitting my toe on that, and then for years afterward, I'd step on it. I'd
Yeah.
step on ever the cracks. That way you don't
Yeah.
stub your toe.
Yeah. It was
You
like
always
a
rise
belief
above it.
that, yeah, rise above it. That's
Yeah,
so
you don't want to
interesting.
stub your toe, do you? But
No,
now, did
but
I know that after that? Did I know that I stepped on those cracks because I hurt my toe and fell? Did I have any awareness that? No, not really. I just created a method that cured this issue that happened, this trauma.
like survival,
Yeah,
like preventing. Yeah, I get it.
yeah. I
So like if
created
you,
something, but then I also veiled it. Completely forgot why I even started doing it.
that's
And
so interesting.
to this day, if I step on cracks, now I can recall. Is there a point to it? Only that I was doing something that I didn't have much agency over. Okay, I didn't have the energy of it. I was automatically running the energy behind the scenes, and it was not available in the present for me to use for other functions that were maybe more beneficial. That's a very small one, and you can
But it's
create really
very,
big ones. You can
yeah,
find them.
but it's
Yeah,
very interesting because
yeah,
that's just a little thing. So
a
imagine
little
like
thing.
a
Yeah,
big thing.
there's lots of big
Imagine,
things.
yeah, like imagine that you live
Yeah.
with a mother that's sick all the time, and then you're
Yes.
responsible, and then what that would cost. Or
Right.
imagine that you have lost a sister from a cancer,
Yeah.
or you have had an automobile accident, or you've been abused or raped. There's so
Yeah.
many traumas that can happen that could cause this kind of reaction in your whole
Right.
life, and that you're not aware of it and hold you back in the future. So this is wonderful that you
Hmm.
help people with this, Nick. So people do come to you. How would they come to you? How would they get a hold of you for this?
Well, my main operation is to train people to learn the system.
Okay, so but you would be able to tell people if they
Of course.
contacted you.
Yeah.
where they should go. Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. And of
Yeah.
course, help in any way that I can. Lifeenergypublications.com is where we have basically it's our hub for all things. So you can learn, you
Awesome.
can train. There's lots of free things that we're trying to do to get information out. That's old information, but new information because a lot of people have never heard of it. And a lot of people, Louise Hay, Rudolph Ballantyne, there's a lot of people that studied this back in the day that went on to develop or speak about um, in positive ways this system. So it is definitely something that others have used that they found beneficial.
Awesome.
That we just say, give it a try and see what it does for you. How well can you work with the system and understand it and see where it takes you. Learning about the self is basically the main goal. And then anything else that you get, we would love a case study. We would love to hear about
That's
it.
nice. That's nice.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about that we have come that that astrology is important. It's interesting. The stars do have our energy. Every one of those planets has an energetic field and influences
Hmm.
us on some level. And that, this has been studied for eons, actually. And we have been in this very interesting age of Pisces. And now we're going into the age of Aquarius, which is a very big change. And you can just feel the chaos of this. Can you address that change, please? Because I know
Well, yeah, you
you
said
know
it
about
well. You can feel the chaos, right?
it. Yeah, yeah.
It's a
Exactly.
it's a dynamic change. You can see in history when the ages have changed prior. We It's my belief that we have proof that the people were around and building really amazing, great things in the age of Virgo, and that even into the age of Leo, things were being built that were amazing, that things dynamically began to change. Uh, my thought is that in the age of Leo, we kind of lost a principle of old technology and the old world, the megaliths. We lost it in that age of Leo when people got a little bit more what they call Leos being egotistical. We got a little bit more self-centered and ruler oriented, where we had a single ruler who dominated and less tribal for sure. A pharaoh, perhaps,
Yeah.
something like that. Somebody that said that they were the sun, and I mean the sun and the God and everything like that that goes together. And maybe we're still living through that now. But every age change, you can see that there was a dynamic shift. Cultures changed dynamically. The worship of the bull, that takes us back to Taurus, the age of Taurus, and that fell. The worship of the ram, Aries, and then that fell. And then now we had we call it worship of the fish, but of the Christian era or monotheism. And that era is coming to an end. Now, we don't know exactly what that means religiously or whatever, but culturally and consciously, we can see that it's going to make an adjustment, as we can see, I should say.
Yeah, it's happening.
Yeah, even
Yeah.
in the 90s, I could have broadcast most of what we're seeing because that's the way it works.
Yeah.
And I could say that Aquarians are of the hive mind in that idea that there's a connection like psychic energy that is a way for people to have contact with people through their thoughts anywhere at any point in time. This is the quantum that we were talking about, that we can talk to somebody on Saturn, if there was somebody on Saturn, and have a conversation with them, or Europa, perhaps. Let's say that's a little bit more appropriate. And we could have a conversation with them without having to have laser beam it or,
Yeah.
fibers or cables or anything like that. We have the way to have a conversation direct with somebody anywhere. And that is what we're kind of beginning to see. Now you see Neuralink with Elon Musk. This is just a physical similarity to what psychic energy is, and it's going to happen. And this is a reality. There's going to be this separation of that which is physical and that which is mental. And the mental powers of the mind are great. And one of those things is going to be, of course, this psychic energy. So a
Mhm.
lot of people are in upheaval because emotional energy, which we were riding in before, passion and the water sign of Pisces is going into what a lot of people think is water. It's a little trick, two little wavy lines. I deem, or I used to call, as clouds, the clouds in the sky. This thing that's suspended in the heavens that we don't understand. What is that? What are those clouds? That's the craziest thing in the world that it's just sitting up there, these amorphous forms.
Yeah.
And if you ever sat down and watched the forms, kind of, oh, I see an elephant. You see that?
Yeah.
That is kind of what we're going into. We're going into this, like, what do
So
you want to
it's
make it?
not concrete. It's not
No,
concrete. It's
no.
it's going from like a real physical, right? Piscean age of hierarchical structures and like you said, very emotional development, a lot of emotions there.
Yeah.
Going into now air, which is about communication, collective. It's about
Hmm.
the groups. It's not about the individual anymore. That's
Right.
also a big change, right? When you say,
Yeah. Gemini informs us of how air acts, and air is anything it needs to be. But it's also in our development. It's the where we realize that we have people outside of our family that we're just friends, other people. The triplicity. There's me, you, and them. And who are them? And that's this community. And whereas Libra informs itself more through somebody else, a partner, Aquarius is very specific to community.
yeah,
So you'll see a lot of changes happening. This is where they're saying that maybe the United States won't stay united because it needs to break into these smaller districts. That could be happening with the European Union with Brexit. You could be seeing that as a idea of this break and fragmentation so that the isolated units can become stronger, but also be connected. So Aquarius, while being in the clouds mentally, is also a fixed sign. It's standing on the ground. So there's this divergence. We approach those clouds from the ground, from a fixed point and perspective.
yeah.
So that's very important. There's a grounded approach to doing these things. And when I saw what happened with COVID, where we all broke into pods and we're doing these Zooms, and that
Yeah.
was our means of communication, that was a very physical way of looking at what will become a latent potential for people, this
Yeah, I
psychic
mean,
energy.
eventually it'll be way beyond that, but this is like
Oh
the
yeah,
beginning. This
yeah.
is the beginning because when you think about walking through walls or like just like you said, just whoops, I'm on Saturn or like
Hmm.
all of that is possible in the age of Aquarius, but obviously
Right.
it's going to be a process to get there. But the first things we're starting to see is what you're saying.
Yeah, we can inform ourselves by where we've been. We can see what we're doing now, so we can kind of project forward. You can say Nostradamus was really good at doing this. He utilized a globe of water to sear into. You can use anything. He used a vessel with water, glass with water, and then he utilized his knowledge of astrology to prognosticate. And you can kind of do that. And you can say that, like, while we're doing this now, holographs and the holodeck, what I call the holodeck and from Star Trek, I think will become a very real thing where
Yeah,
you can
me too.
interact and you can kind of be in that what they want to call virtual reality is the future. Well, it's not exactly that. It's very similar, but it is where you can go and interact in a whole scenario around you that
And
you're
not
in.
physically be there, like you're
You
just
can be
there. You could be
in
there physically
in
too.
your point. You can be in there.
Yeah,
It just
you could.
depends on
I
how they
know what
can
you
develop
mean.
it. Yeah.
That's true. Star Trek does have a physical.
I mean, they go into it, and
Yeah,
and maybe they
exactly.
just didn't have the concept of Neuralink at that point in time. But
True. That's
yeah,
funny.
Matrix. The Matrix would be something you could look at. They're all
Yeah.
plugged in. They're all dreaming or um, neurolinking the world of that we know in 1999, the Matrix, and and then they can find their way out of it because now they're trapped, right? Very,
So
very potential,
that's
very high
so
potential.
interesting. And so in that way, you could actually time travel.
Yes, yes, you can time travel. You can do it right now, but there gets a little sticky for me with the past because you absolutely can travel into the past and you can travel into other people's past. Can you change anything that actually does anything? Um, you can only, I think, bring that energy forward into your position now to free a limitless potential in the future. So I have trouble understanding the concept of infinity. I think I should. I think everybody should have a strange, like, I don't understand it because the mind doesn't really do infinity. It does finite concepts. So for me, I can see like whatever you want in the future, absolutely infinite because anything's possible. But in the past, it's already been laid. So I'm still trying to figure out how that all works.
And we were influenced by that because that's
Yeah.
also with us.
Right.
So that's also hard. That's what we're doing right now. We're clearing up a lot of those experiences that for lifetimes we carried, right? And
Yeah.
even genetically, we've carried them. I wrote the book, Your Creator Matrix, but it was about my experience just decoding my own story. But I
Right.
think everyone has a story. And that's the thing. So the first thing is to like love yourself with a story and not judge yourself. And the
Yeah.
second thing is to say, who am I and what do I want to keep and what's not truly mine? And then you start to like, and I think your work with your father has truly been doing that for a very long time
Hopefully.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that and when you use something very important there, which is I think um something we should touch on, which is when we look at doing this work, we're going to investigate ourselves. When we say, and I say investigate, some people say to go to war with themselves, and that's partly true. It maybe is a framing that you can use, but your shield, your present shield, is love, is this love of self and of journey, and this desire to investigate the past. When I say investigate, to go to war with those things in the past. My dad used dragons, right? For him, it
Yeah.
was
That's
these
funny.
nexuses of energy would become conscious in the past and control your present, restricting your future. So he would say, like St. George, go to war with your pike and your spear, and find the dragons. And what we do is release them, get them out of there, get those dragons out. But your shield is that love. You want anything to come at you, and that means presently or anything. The stronger that you have of a love for yourself is like a shield against dark energy and bad people and all that. Can it, can it get past that? Can it get past your love for yourself? And it shouldn't. And that should be your strength is that you are knowing yourself. It's an active, it's an action, right? You may not know, but you are knowing. And
Yeah.
in that action, you have a desire, a passion, and you do have to love who you are and your journey because, yes, everybody has that journey that they've been on. And at different points and places, sometimes that veil comes up and we start to say, what's going on here? What was I doing? Take that red pill.
Yeah.
What's going on? Why is everything happening like this?
Yeah.
And it's our journey to undertake. It's up to each individual to do it. And there is work, and it's good work. It's fun work because it's learning about yourself.
But that's not like that would be great if every child was just given that explanation. That's not what we're given, right? So it
Yeah.
takes us some well, in the past, in the Piscean age, some of us just lived lives and we never even knew that. I mean, we saw this whole self reflection thing start in the 60s where people started questioning things. That's actually the first like Aquarius was already starting, right? It was already like, oh, it's coming. And so Aquarius in general is this age of information. And so we want to understand ourselves now. Like I think that's what you're saying. It's
Yeah.
now time. And to release our inner dragons or whatever. And I think a feminine way would be more I have a lot of male in my family too and female, but the male side would definitely go to war with
Mhm.
dragons and
Right, right.
the female would look at it a bit differently. They would be like, hold hands with your inner loving dragon. Like
Hmm.
it's a little bit like you could look at it both ways, right? It's important.
Yeah, I
That's
had to look at that too, and I had to when I was listening to the seminars, at certain points, he would basically say that you're releasing them,
yeah,
dispelling. You're doing a dispel, you're saying no, you know, your energy. It's not your energy, it's my energy. I initially thought, oh, conquer your dragons. It's a good term because it's not saying that you're doing anything terrible. You're
Yeah.
conquering. In
Yeah.
the old mystical traditions, it's taking the reins of the animal state, that kind of thing. What are those automatic processes in you that you've created, typically? Take those reins back and don't let them have control. Addictions are a really great way to look at a lot of this because it's something that's associated in, like smoking, for an example. It's something
Yeah.
that you bring in and then constantly make a decision to do, and then reinforce with I can't, like to get off of it or something like that. That is a separate um, chemical influence that I would definitely call an entity or a dragon that has taken influence over the person and tells them what to do. Have a cigarette. Have a cigarette. And it's also doing something chemically to the body. And the person has to, conquer that um,
That's a very good way to look.
challenge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Challenge. Or destroy the dragon or whatever, whatever works for you.
And
Um,
also just realizing that you're creating a reality and going to your higher self, which is bigger than the addiction,
yeah,
sometimes really can help too, right? Just going out of the story, because that's the story, you as the
right,
cigarette smoker. But what if I took myself out of the story? Then I go and I look at myself, and then I could say, oh, I choose that.
right.
Because ultimately we're making choices and we're not really just like a victim, are we? But we can get in the story where we feel that we're in this story and we're stuck in it, or
Yeah,
we can get out of the story. So I think consciousness is showing us right now in the age of Aquarius that we're not the stories, we're just creating them. So the question is, what do you want to create?
yeah, yeah. Your own hologram, your own,
Exactly.
holodeck.
Exactly. So you have also been, so obviously people can learn about their numerology or their their astrology because they came under certain influences that are influencing them also. But that doesn't mean they're like attached to that, right? They're just, these are just influences. And
Yeah,
I think understanding them, you can work with them. You want to address that? Like you
yeah,
can
no, yeah.
work.
It's a very common issue that even myself I had to deal with astrology because I kind of got locked in, and then I learned more about astrology, and I constantly learn more. And these are just formats for us to uncover parts of ourselves. That's it. And whereas there's things that are like, well, a lot of the old way of looking at things is that you're locked in. This is
And
it.
not, no.
Forget it. Name analysis works with numerology and the energy of tone in the letters. What if you change your name? And it's very important. Change your name. Try it. See how things adjust. I mean, it's amazing, right? Uh, you have a short name. You always go by that. Somebody calling you
Yeah.
your full name, you're like, oh, hey, that's
Yeah.
feels very
Sure.
different. So there is something to it. It's the intent and the will. But with astrology, a great example is that this is like a snapshot, and it's definitely something that is impressed on us, but it's not something that we have to be frozen in.
Right.
And it is what it is, and it shows that if you're following one way, one method, it may not be fully accurate. What if you don't know the time you were born? There's a lot of different variables, so it's only as good as the system that you're using, and the purpose of it is that you're trying to find out more about yourself. It just always goes back to the
Yeah,
simplistic,
exactly.
the simplistic of it. So you're only wed to it. If you find something that you don't like, especially in astrology, you can outweigh it with another aspect from a different planet.
Yeah.
There's usually some scale that's like, oh, you're really this. But then if I look over here, it says that I'm not.
Yeah.
So you can kind of say, well, I really associate more with Venus than I do with Jupiter because Venus is giving me more benefit. This is just some way to like kind of work with things. Still, you're all of it. So it's your choice.
It's just more the influence, like you're either working with the energy. I've noticed that it helps to understand the energy.
Yes.
Like when we were in Mercury retrograde the last couple of months, that was
Hmm.
interesting.
Yeah.
Then you understand why things are happening. You don't react to them so much. You're like, oh,
Right.
okay, let's just
And
go with
again,
it.
it's centric to us here because we're
Yeah.
impressed by the things that most specifically that we can see we can see Mercury, and visibly what it's doing is it's going backwards. And so everything that it represents, something that I always said, like maybe we shouldn't call hurricanes by a name because we're now giving it like this extra charge. Maybe we should go back to like just some random gobbledygook, like, 4x3. And the same with planets and stars. Maybe we shouldn't give it an archetype like a god or something like a demon or whatever they're doing. It's like, maybe we shouldn't do that
Because we're kind of
because
fixing it in that moment,
we're
right?
fixing
Yeah.
it and
Yeah.
it's again, it's a holodeck. So we're creating these players, these energies, and we want to purify. We really do want to purify it. So we're working on a more clean slate. And when we have all these influences, which they're there, that we have to work with, it just, pushes us down and keeps us from being able to fully rise up and get outside of the whole story. Let's get
Yeah.
out of the whole story.
Exactly.
I used
So
to
that's
say,
also Aquarius. That's also Aquarius,
yeah,
seeing the
yeah, it
higher
is.
picture, right? That's,
Bigger perspectives. Yeah.
yeah, we're really growing in consciousness now. It's like we are being, like we were little like this, and now we're getting out of all those paradigms. But you
Yeah.
were about to say something.
Well, it involves, Aquarius involves dreams and things like that, aspirations. So it definitely takes us to like, where can we go? Like, the sky's not the limit, I
Yeah,
like to say. Well, if you're going
exactly.
to reincarnate, what would you want to reincarnate to be next in your life? That'd be
That's
your question for
interesting.
you.
That's a very good question.
Yeah.
I love that. So one more thing, and then we're almost wrapping up here. You've been working with gemstones and crystals. I'm
Yeah.
just curious if you want to share that about that.
Yep. Crystal Earth. I have a new podcast that I started, Crystal Earth Podcast, and it's just me going through chronological order somewhat of crystals A to Z. I've been working with stone since the 90s. That was kind of my original side hustle slash main job through the years, and did a lot of trade shows. I love rocks and gemstones and crystals and jewelry, and I love that industry because it's creating and manufacturing or polishing something that somebody else absolutely loves. So there's just this extra like benefit of this energy of exchange that's very positive that you make something, you enjoyed it, put energy into it, and then the person that gets it is very happy too. So it's just all around a wonderful industry to be in. Um, so yeah, work with rocks, gemstones, um, and I have a plethora of information about it. Of course, it's a never-ending study, much like astrology and things like that. They're
Totally.
always finding more rocks in the world, and there's always new things to investigate. I have been working with them in a metaphysical sense as well, which I utilize the way that it grows, the family of stones that it's in, and then the color. And that informs me of how it will act. It doesn't necessarily tell me everything about it because it depends on how I approach it and where I'm at.
Totally. Totally.
I'm not a pure purple, so
No.
amethyst is going to act very different to me, and then it's going to act different to other people, depending on maybe they're a little bit more purple than I am.
Yeah, so
But
what you're getting at here again, they're all different frequencies, and then we're
yeah,
all influencing our own frequency. And it's the law kind of allowing what you allow and
yeah,
what you would maybe hope for. Crystals, I find very interesting because I do believe, and I write about this, that we are going into a more crystalline physicality. Uh,
yeah,
that's also part of Aquarius. And
yeah,
so I think that is a whole nother podcast we could have,
yeah.
but
Absolutely.
that's beautiful that you're doing that work, Nick. And so I just want to ask you, like maybe to end this podcast, your hope for the future, and maybe just repeat the services you offer people.
Sure, sure. My hope is that we can all kind of grow in our consciousness and develop a knowledge of the self in such a way that we are, well, I'll use a Quaker term, more tolerant to each other.
Yeah,
I think that tolerance is very important, especially in this day and age. And the more that we grow and develop, the more tolerant we become. But there is a need to not tolerate intolerance, however that works. It's a catch-22. We have to
yeah,
look and verify sources and people and things around us that are intolerant and not tolerate those things. We can't just let those things push us over. but we do have to become greatly more tolerant of other people's place and position in the world. And so my hope is that we can drive towards more tolerance in the world and more consciousness and more knowledge of self. What we offer is learning at your own pace or through our courses in the SAF method, the self-awareness formulas, and learn more about life energy.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nic. So lovely. And I'm sure we'll do this again because you have a wealth of knowledge. Oh my goodness. We just scratched the surface, I think. Anyway, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Kathleen. And thank you for what you do. And I really appreciate the time that you've spent with me today.
Oh.